Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Tony Draper. How are you? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Chicken Box, brought to you by the Afro, the Black Media Authority, which I love that subtitle. It's great. 132 years, coming up on 133 in August for the Afro, oldest, the oldest family-owned Black business in the United States. Is that correct? I always feel like there's a part of this I'm missing.
Right. Well, we're not the oldest family-owned Black business, but we're the oldest family-owned Black newspaper
Newspaper.
media company in the country. Let's say that because we're no longer just a newspaper. But
Okay.
that was good, Jay. You have it.
I'm gonna get like a read down. I feel like I'm always like I feel like I'm always underselling it.
Well, old has connotations of good and not so good. Sometimes people have old and hear old and they think man stayed and outdated and
right.
But we're not. We are old.
Seasoned.
We're seasoned, but in our methods we're young and hip and tech sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. This week we are joined by Kisha Brown Esquire, who is a civil rights lawyer who runs a company called Justis Connection. So we're gonna bring Kisha up and talk about some serious work that she's doing in our area and nationwide here soon. Kisha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Draper. Always an honor. Jay, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let me just give a quick rundown of your, I'm sure, shortened version of your profile. But Kisha Brown is a civil rights lawyer, advisor, speaker, and proud newish mom, it says here. So congratulations to that. Is the founder and CEO of Justis Connection, the nation's first Black attorney referral network, recognized as the 2023 Justice Champion by the Maryland State Bar Association and Daily Record. She has also been named one of the most influential women in legal tech, rooted in the legacy of Black resilience and advocacy. She is committed to empowering our communities by bridging the gap between legal access and justice. That is a mouthful. So can you translate that out to what Justis Connection is and what you guys provide?
Yeah, so for me, justice is my jam, right? Like I honestly feel that way and I felt that way probably the majority of my life. And just recognizing our relationship with justice in this country as Black people, right, has not been linear. It's been something that we have fought for and that we've never taken our eyes off the prize, right? And so for me, in building Justis Connection, it was the response to what I personally and so many of us experience when you're looking for legal help. You're looking for an attorney or you're looking for someone to give you some legal information as it relates to a divorce, a car accident, your business, because little cousin Pookie gets in trouble with the law, right? Like at some point in time, we are going to need legal help. And I noticed that we didn't have a network, a one-stop shop, if you will, for people to go to connect with Black lawyers. And so I decided to build it. And so that's what Justis Connection is. It is that one-stop shop to connect with a Black lawyer on a variety of different issues, depending on what your need is, and being able to do so easily and efficiently.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. So it's just what it says. It's a way to connect people. And I know you do so much more. We'll get into some of the seminars and webinars and things that you do. So help us. Let me say hi to our viewers. We have folk that are viewing sometimes from all over the country. We hope that you'll weigh in. Welcome to the Chicken Box. We are so glad that you are here. And so put your comments in the chat if you have a question for our guest. She has a wealth of knowledge and information. So let's use one of your examples. Let's say I have a family member who needs legal assistance. What do they do?
Yeah, so right now, sometimes often we're calling our favorite auntie, right? Maybe auntie can help us get through this. And we really need to talk to an attorney at times to even discover sometimes, Dr. Draper, that we have a legal problem. Like our issue includes a legal problem. Sometimes it doesn't always, it's not right in our face, but the law is vast, right? And so much is really covered in law that we sometimes are taking it on the chin. We're DIYing our problems when in turn there are legal solutions, right? So for example, somebody comes to you and they say, I've got a problem. Maybe it's an employment problem. Maybe especially with all these things that are going on in the country, people are being laid off, whether you work for the federal government, where they're saying, oh, if you're DEI, we're going to cut you out. Or maybe you're a business owner who's losing a contract because they say, oh, we don't do DEI contracts anymore, right? What does this all mean? And sometimes we think, oh man, this is what's happening. I'm just going to have to find another job or another contract, or maybe my business fails. But there are legal avenues for you to take to get a solution, right? So in the case of a federal employee, speaking with an attorney might help you realize what are some of the choices you have in this process. It's not just to take it lying down, if you will. Let's say you're a probationary employee. So those are folks who usually when you're hired, you have 1 to 2 years where you have to, you're on probation before you're sort of permanent. And sometimes we think, okay, last hired, first fired, and that makes sense. But there are rules. There's a code of federal regulations that protects probationary employees. So if you've experienced a termination as a result of the new president's orders, you may have protections baked in that an attorney knows the law about and can help you navigate. So at the very least, you are, one, going through the proper appeals process, which has to be done within the first 30 days of your termination, being able to have someone who can guide you on the language maybe that you put into a severance package, or negotiating your admin paid leave, getting transferred. There are all different ways that we can support folks who are facing these challenges, so that we're not facing them alone.
That's excellent advice, especially in this environment. So we go to a website, we call you up. What do we do?
Don't call me. You can call me, of course, anytime. but we send people to our website. It's easy. There you go, and you're able to choose an attorney and connect with an attorney there. We are free, so it's not a cost to use our service, but you do need to have a budget, right? Attorneys are not free, but they're also not $10,000 on day one. I always recommend that folks take advantage of what's known as the legal consultation. And it's an opportunity to set a meeting with an attorney one-on-one and get personalized legal advice that really can provide you that preliminary information as you decide what's the best choice for you and your family, right? Whether that's who's the best attorney to develop your estate plan and protect your legacy, or who's the best attorney to help you through this $1 million contract or $250,000 contract. You want to be able to sort of get a feel for what this person's advice is, their strategy would be. And I'll tell you, attorneys are people too. So it may differ from person to person. You may go to one attorney and they say, oh, you lost out on this contract. I guess you should just take diversity off of your website, and then that way there will be no problems. Another attorney might say, oh no, they can't terminate your contract because you've already invested money and resources into into receiving that contract. Diversity is not against the law. Keep it on your website. You're not doing anything wrong. Right. And so it's just interpretation of the law sometime, if you will. But it is very clear that there's a lot of, or I should say it's very unclear right now, right? Where a lot of people are trying to figure out, is DEI illegal? Is it wrong? What are my rights?
We don't even know what it is. All I know is the 3 letters. People don't even know what it is.
They don't even know what the acronym is.
They know what the words are, but they don't even know what people. So the consultation is usually complimentary. Is that the right word?
It is not. That is complimentary is a word, but not the right word for the consult. So usually attorneys charge, right? It is their time and expertise that you dive into. That could cost you anywhere between $300 to $500. right? Depending on the attorney, depending on the issue that you need a consult on. But I liken it to, I speak with business owners, for example, and if you got a $250,000 contract, you better work in some legal into that budget, because the contract that you're signing is worth not only your own profit, but the salaries of others and the vendors that you're employing. And too many of us are signing contracts, happy to be in the deal, and not actually making sure that those contracts are beneficial to us as well. Because whoever wrote the contract did not write it for you. They wrote it for them, right? So you really got to have an attorney to be able to look at those things. I do one-on-one legal assessments as well for families and businesses, because sometimes folks need to have sort of that conversation before they hire someone, right? So it's an opportunity to really break down, hey, this is a time where you can talk about all of your issues and challenges. Sometimes, for example, I spoke with a family who here in Maryland, but their father is in South Carolina. They own 70 acres. Come on, Black people. We own land around the country, especially in the South, right? And they had this land down South, and they're trying to figure out, how do we distribute this to new generations, right? As well as the father had the roof done, but the contractor didn't do it right and didn't finish the job, but he's based in Georgia, and should they hire an attorney and so forth. But by the time I finished speaking with her, I was able to advise and say, one, you don't need to hire an attorney at this juncture for the roof issue. The roof costs $7,500, which you want to get your money back, but it also is below the small claims threshold. So your best bet is to go to Georgia, which has a higher threshold for small claims, to bring action against that contractor there. Those courts are designed for people to do it pro se, which means on their own without a lawyer. On the issue of your land, that's an heirs property issue, right? And so that you want to speak with an estate planning attorney who's based in South Carolina, or is at least barred in South Carolina. So sometimes we just need a roadmap, right, on where we need to go and how to navigate. And that's something that I personally do for folks, but and that other attorneys can do as well.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds insanely complex. So it's kind of nice to have somebody who is an expert, because most people go, I don't know, let's just try to handle it on our own, and then it becomes a larger problem. I want to kick back into what you sort of referred to, which is, at this time there's a lot of sort of like contracts being, eliminated because of, DEI, or the supposed issues with DEI that are largely just made up nonsense. But how are you navigating, since you're in this world and since you are connecting so many lawyers out to other people, how are you seeing what's happening? Like yesterday, the administration basically just thumbed its nose at the court and said, we're not going to restore funding to USAID, right? We're just going to ignore how the government works. How do you navigate that from a legal perspective when it seems like the judiciary is just kind of being put on the back burner and not considered a co-equal branch of the government? Like, what is the role of lawyers at this point, as you see it? Like, how do you push back on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really see lawyers as like, hold the line right now, right? Yeah. Like, hold the line and push back, if you will, because you do have an administration who is rogue, right? Who is doing what they feel. And, those first couple of weeks, it was the judiciary that had all of those stay orders, right? So it basically means what you put into place has to stop. Right? Like, we need to stop this and put a pause on things. So it was the judiciary that sort of was active. Congress wasn't really doing much, and the judiciary was saying, and this was not just Democrat lawyers, judges, but judges who were appointed by Reagan all the way to Obama, who were saying this is going too far. And so I think for the role of lawyers in this is really to be very active, to be very present, to be very in touch, especially with communities, because it's not just U.S. aid and a government agency that is losing its funding. It's real people, right, who are running businesses or who are losing jobs, and how private industry, in addition to other government agencies, are interpreting what is being said, right? So you've got lawyers who can help guide on the interpretation of things. And it was just this week where I think it was about 20 or so state attorney generals joined forces to issue out a report saying diversity is not against the law, right? Discrimination is, which is not changed, but diversity is not against the law. Equity is not against the law. Inclusion is not against the law, no matter that our federal government, led by our president, is framing language to make it seem as such. Right. It is not so, right? And so everyday people, I think, are really going to feel the effect of the confusion, the chaos that is very intentional. But I think we're gonna feel it on very granular levels, where an attorney general is not coming to save you tomorrow when you get, your contract dismissed or your job taken away. But that's where everyday lawyers matter. And I'll tell you, the majority of Black attorneys are in solo and small local law firms. So you don't have to go into a large, tall penthouse, floor to reach a Black attorney. We're very much rooted in the community. And now more than ever, we really need to tap into our lawyers, because it's not a nice to have, it's a must have.
So you raise an interesting point when you talk about the attorneys general who have banded together to file, an action. How about all these people that have been laid off? I can imagine, you lose your job and you need an attorney, but that's another expense because you just lost your job, right? So are people forming class actions? I mean, is that kind of organizing going on, do you think, amongst employees? I know some were in unions, and unions may be pushing back, but all these government workers that are just summarily being dismissed. Today you have a job, tomorrow you don't.
Right.
And you may have some time frame, in terms of your health insurance, but I just can't imagine how traumatic that is and what people do.
Yeah, I was actually a couple weeks ago, not early in the process, but late January, was contacted by a whole team of a Department of Energy employees who were put on paid admin leave. So a whole department was let go, and it's about 15 people. And they sort of banded together themselves and said, hey, we're better keeping in contact and supporting one another. And one of the first things they did was, we need to talk to counsel, right? We need to talk to a lawyer. So they connected with a DEI specialist that I actually did a program with a couple of weeks ago. It was Know Your Rights, Navigating DEI Rollbacks for Federal Employees and Contractors. And so these federal employees reached out, and I had a legal consult with them, and then was able to connect them to a number of employment attorneys who said that they were interested and available to be able to assist them. So I think that, the way class actions are actually very challenging to put together, because you got to build the class, if you will. This is it's not unique, but it is new in the sense that you've got the federal government who is potentially breaking the law and very.
It's pretty unique.
Right?
It's unique.
And so it's across the board. I think people think that DEI firings are affecting Black people only, and it's not, right? The people that I spoke with at the Department of Energy, they were veterans, they were white, they were male, they hit all the different demographics. And so people I think you can do some things individually and you can do some things collectively. But individually, your situation is somewhat different than everybody else's, right? Like depending on your personal demographics, depending on your tenure, depending on what's in your file, right? People were highly encouraged to download their file. If you are a federal employee right now, even if you haven't gotten anything in the mail, you need to download your file immediately, right? Because
what do you mean download your file versus what does that mean specifically?
Yeah, so like downloading your personnel file, right? Like everything that you have as it relates to your employee handbook, because each department might have its own policies and procedures. Get a copy of that. Get a copy of your union handbook. Download everything in your personnel file. So oftentimes, where you have your assessments or your annual reviews or anything, because when you are fired, there has to be there's policies in place for how that happens. You can't just turn around and fire someone in the federal government because it's a Tuesday and you want to get rid of everyone. So especially if are you affecting only the Black people? Are you affecting only the women? Are you affecting only the people who aren't born in this country, right? We have protected classes that that are protected, right? So sorry, protected classes that are protected. That was very but but federal law protects certain classes as well as state law as well as local law. So for example, here in Maryland, there's not only the federal protected classes, which are like race, gender, national origin, color, sexual orientation, age. Those are also in Maryland state law, and they're also in Baltimore City, that municipalities laws as well. So there are many layers, right, to these protections sometimes. And depending on if you're a federal employee or otherwise, there are different levels in which you can sort of, you have different avenues, if you will, to sort of avail yourselves of different solutions, whether it's administrative or whether it's going to court. And a lawyer can help you, navigate that type of stuff.
Well, you need a lawyer.
And to your point, Dr. Draper, I know lawyers aren't cheap, right? They're not. And that's a whole nother conversation, if you will. But if your salary is $80,000, then I need you to find the $300 to $350 to speak to somebody about what your possible avenues are in protecting your job and protecting your pension and protecting, all the things that come along with the lifestyle that you built around.
But I'm thinking about the $30,000 to $40,000 federal employee who just started, 3 kids, takes the public transportation to get to the office, and they're not $80,000. They don't have that lifestyle. So I was just kind of curious about that. If you're just tuning in, we are having a conversation with Kisha Brown, the founder and CEO of Justis Connection, a Black attorney referral service or referral service for Black attorneys and their potential clients. And so there is a website right there, justisconnection.com. I think you go in and fill out like a really short questionnaire about what you want. And then what Justis Connection does is make the connection. And so when somebody does that, do they get 2 or 3 different referrals and then they can vet those individually, or how does that work?
It does, pretty much like that, right? You get a couple of different attorneys who likely respond by email, some call directly, and then you're able to really choose who's the best suited for you. And that to me is a very personal choice. It could be your price point that might be most important. Like, hey, whoever hits the lowest number, that's who I'm going to pick. It could be personality wise, right? Like, hey, when I talk to somebody, the first 5 minutes, I want to chit chat. How are you? What's your day like? What'd you have for lunch? And then I want to get into business, right? And that might not be your style, but that might matter for how you're able to communicate, how you feel comfortable speaking with that person. So personality really is important. And then as far as availability and sort of what the strategy is. So I might speak to someone and their strategy doesn't align with my spirit and what it is that I want to do. So maybe I pick somebody else who does speak more my language and so forth. And so that process, we're actually in the process of like doing some changes at Justis Connection, which will be relaunching in the summertime. And so I haven't shared that. So this is breaking news here.
Okay, breaking news. All right, pay attention.
So, yeah, we're going to be revamping how the public to make it even more efficient and accessible for the public on how they connect with Black lawyers, and then also scaling around the country this year, right, this summer, so that we recognize the need is there, the people are there, and we're redesigning the system so that we can meet that need and be national by this summer.
That's good, because I can imagine if you've never had any interaction with an attorney, you're not a small business person, you're not you don't have a state, you don't have any, everybody has an estate of some kind, but you don't have, and this is your very first time somebody, and you need like a criminal lawyer and you've never talked to lawyers before. Do you find that some people are just intimidated when they connect?
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head, really. we, speaking specifically about Black people, right? We have always used the law, don't get me wrong, to avail ourselves of our freedom, of our justice. We've always utilized the courts. From the minute we stepped foot on this country, we've utilized the courts. But we don't normally, that is not a part of our everyday being, right? Is to see how we take advantage and leverage the law to advance our careers, to advance our family status and things of that nature, where our white counterparts, quite frankly, are very used to doing that. And so engaging the law, a lawyer proactively, is somewhat foreign to us. We are usually on the defensive or the reactive side when it comes to the law. Even my own parents, we the same as everybody else. Their daughter's a lawyer. Their daughter is building a network of lawyers, and they're still like, well, I think we'll write our own will. And I'm like, what? That's not going to work, right? There is this threshold we have to cross to be able to say, I understand this investment. I want to make this investment. I want to connect with this professional and have them do it. It is a thing, right? And it doesn't matter. I've worked with business owners who are signing $1 million contracts and have never spoken to an attorney, right? So we are out here really DIYing it. It's partly why, Dr. Draper, I started a legal coaching called Path to Profit, right? And it's all about legal strategies for successful business owners and making it much more affordable. So it's $99 a month. It's being able to speak with an attorney to be able to really break down a lot of the issues that business owners are facing. And quite frankly, also doing it in a very intimate community. So this legal coaching is really new, but it is really trying to meet us where we are. And you will love our first attorney was the dynamic, amazing Portia Wood, who I absolutely love. She's one of my favorite estate planning attorneys. And she came on and she spoke about business succession planning. And I will tell you, everyone in attendance was wowed. Right? Because it was things that they had never spoken about, never heard about, and really helped shift some things for themselves. I had one participant who told me she was texting her husband live, like, we doing it wrong. We gotta.
Let's say, I saw your email. So people can they go back? Who can have access to that? Do they have to be a part of the path to? I missed the rest of it. Profit.
Yeah, Path to Profit. Yeah.
Path to Profit. Do that need to be a part of that? Then they can access that recording. Is that the way that works? Okay.
That is the way it works, right? So you got to be in Path to Profit, and then you can access past recordings. You're able to go to the upcoming sessions. And it is it's for business owners who are like, hey, this is not a hobby that I plan on ending at the end of the year. I'm making money. I want to keep making money. And I know that I need legal help, but I might not be ready to hire someone. I might not be ready for the $350 legal consult, but I need to do something. And I'm telling you now, if you are in business and you intend to keep the money you're making and continue to make more, you got to connect with legal support. Absolutely. You do. All businesses have legal connection, right? They have legal advice. They have legal information because there are things that we don't know that we need to know as we're doing what we're doing. And so often we are just taking it on the chin. We really are. We just take our L's and we just say, you got to keep on going. And somebody can pay you for them L's, right? Because the law is on your side and you need someone to tell you when the law is on your side. And that's what a good lawyer does for you.
Because we don't know what we don't know, do we?
We don't. Exactly. We don't. And even myself, as I'm building Justis Connection, I'm not completely trained in business law. So there are things that I learned from being in company and by hiring counsel to be able to help me navigate different things. I don't want to review all my contracts and think that they're send them with somebody else. What do you think about this? What's my risk and my liability? And those are things that so many of us miss out on that I, as you can tell, am very passionate about making sure that we have those resources as Black people.
Excellent. Your Justis Connection has a ton of sort of areas in which you guys cover, right? Adoption, bankruptcy, business law, cannabis law, civil rights, all sorts of things, right? Is there is there an avenue that you guys have not gotten into that you would like to expand into? I know you're going nationwide this summer, obviously. Is there something that you're sort of seeing an emerging aspect of law that you're like, oh, like we didn't touch on that. Let's kind of go in that direction as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. Black lawyers do it all, right? They really do. They do it all. And some are in their own practices, meaning their own firm. Some work in small firms, some work in large firms, different resources, different access points, if you will, depending on what their situation is. And especially this summer when we go national, I can't imagine there isn't something that there isn't a Black lawyer who's done it and is working on it, right? So even if it's something that you haven't seen, you remember when, I think it was last year, when those kids, Black children were being snubbed at those national parks, those like Sesame Street Park and other places, and they were being snubbed and they showed it on video. It was Black lawyers who stepped up and said, oh no, not our kids, right? Like we're going to bring suit against you. But we hadn't seen that before, right? And so sometimes we don't even know what is violating the law and what that looks like. I mean, you would categorize that, Jay, as like civil rights law, right? Like that would sort of go under the umbrella. But on an individual level, you don't necessarily know what bracket something might fit into because you're experiencing it, but you don't know what title that is, if I'm making any sense. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? That it doesn't mean that somebody isn't already working on it and already making inroads behind the scene, because there are lawyers now who are working on class action suits that haven't even come to fruition yet, right? But a lot of these things do take, some things are immediate where, it happens and people hit the scene with it. And then there are other things that really take due diligence and research and investigation to really build to see whether there is a case.
Mm-hmm. Right. One area though, Kisha, that you were an early adapter of is in this tech law. And there weren't a whole lot of folk in that space. Now everybody's like, oh, AI, I need to get in that space. But say a little bit about your entree into the is it tech law or law tech? But anyway, into that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. Thank you. It is something that I recognize we as Black lawyers in particular, and even those who are non-lawyers, weren't really in legal tech at all, right? And for me, legal tech is all about leveraging technology to advance justice, right? Some people call it justice tech, some people call it legal tech. The law, tech, and putting them two things together, right? Like, and how do we innovate in this space? And I was very grateful in 2023 to be recognized by the International Legal Tech Association as a most influential woman in that space, in legal tech. And it's really about exploring how technology can increase access to justice. For me, that is the lens that I operate on, right? And so being able to see how do we use AI in your practice, and then also how do we use AI to support people beyond connecting with a lawyer, because there is a gap, right? 70% of us Black people do not have a will or an estate plan. So as that number, we look to close that gap. What about the people, to your point, Dr. Draper, who just can't afford an attorney and are not going to be able to spend $1,500 to $5,000 for an estate planning attorney? Because that's about what it goes for, depending on where you are in the country. I think we need to leverage technology to develop solutions for other people, right? It doesn't cut into, if you will, what lawyers are doing, but we can do some things, I think, that allow people to access the law on lower price points, including free all the way up, that doesn't leave us so vulnerable, right? And that's what I lean into.
People can use tech now. I mean, are there places that you would recommend? Let's say somebody has a simple will. It's not a big estate. They just want to do a simple will. Are there places that you would recommend if they came to you and said, look, I have 2 kids, no house, a car and some personal belongings. Maybe I don't need a will. And you'd say, yeah, you need a will anyway, because you need all these advanced directives. That's not a will, but you need other things. So can people use are there places that you'd recommend? I know it's a case-by-case basis that people can get it done rather without $1,500 or $500 to get it done.
Yeah, I would actually recommend them to subscribe with Justice Connection, because that's what we're working on next.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, good. So we're
Honestly, it really is. Now you're really getting the cat out of the bag, because that is, I definitely have never spoken about that, but that is what we're working on next, right?
Okay.
It's really around closing that estate planning gap. And so I would recommend folks to subscribe at Justice Connection. We send out a monthly newsletter, and it includes profiles of the lawyers. It includes legal news you can use. It includes webinars and things that we do all the time to connect folks to free information. So that's why I was like, let's build our own. And as Black people, creating our own technology, right, for ourselves, with ourselves in mind, so that we're not an afterthought. It's something that we're doing on the front end. And I think we're in, I don't know if you would agree, I feel like we are entering more into this space where Black people are leaning in to say, how am I more intentional about where I'm spending my money, where I'm
100%.
right, supporting, and now is the time for us to really lean in and create for ourselves as well, I think.
Right. This has nothing to do with this conversation, but just like today, Walmart reported that their profits were under what they estimated for this quarter. And I'd like to think it's because Black people were aware of what's going on and said, that's not what we're going to spend our dollar.
Mm-hmm. Oh no. Anyway, good. I mean, at a certain point, we do have to embrace the fact that we have extremely large influence, and especially with our dollar in the United States. So yeah, good. I'm glad that maybe that woke somebody up on the board. I don't know.
It may not even have a correlation, and and they're not the only ones that are on the list, by the way. But next week, for example, on the 28th of February, we're asking people not to spend any money. Right.
I saw that February 28th. I think that little beam is going around and everybody's marked their calendar. So I think that's important too, right? For us to show up in that way.
That's a justice issue. So go ahead, Jay. You look as if you get ready to say something.
Yeah, I'm interested in what is the, like, how large is your network of lawyers at this current moment? Now, you are in 4 states right now, right? Maryland, Virginia, Georgia, and like DC. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
How big is your sort of net now, and where do you see that going?
Oh yeah. So that's, speaks a lot to like where the expansion is, right? And I think there are about last that was quantified about 56,000 Black attorneys in the country. Wow. We're actually only 5% of all lawyers. So, we're 13% of the population, but we're only 5% of the lawyers. So, for us in Maryland, we can find a lawyer sort of, right, easier than the rest of the country, because one of the DMV has one of the highest concentration of lawyers in the country. But the reality is that folks can't find us. Folks can't find us in Maryland, right? I know a lot of lawyers. Y'all may know lawyers, but most folks cannot find lawyers, right? It's why I believe, and Dr. Draper, you'll love this. At my church, right, they would refer to me as Attorney Brown. And at first it was very like, oh, don't call me that. Like, it's just Kisha. It's fine. I sit in the balcony. But the purpose behind it was not about me, right? Like, it's not about like, ooh, this woman has a title. It's more about identifying who is the resource in the place of worship, right? Like, who is the attorney? Right. Who is the person who knows legal information? And so we may have 56,000 around the country, but we're very hard to find, especially for the 41 million Black people, right? The ratio is off, if you will. And so our goal when we expand national is really is like 1,000 lawyers, right? To come in with, at the minimum, 1,000 lawyers into this network. And that translates, Jay, around the country in ways that we quite honestly have not seen before, right? There is no other source where you can go to one spot and say, oh, I'm going to be able to find 1,000 Black attorneys or 2,000 Black attorneys or 100 Black attorneys, right? And so, more now than ever, I think folks want to have that type of resource, and the numbers, I think, will be reflected on both sides, that Black lawyers are going to lean in and say, we want this too. And for Black people who have already said, yes, where are you? We want to connect and hire as well.
Mm-hmm. So do you vet the lawyers in this connection?
Yeah, so we do sort of like an initial vetting process. So we, one, make sure that they're properly barred and licensed, if you will, in the state that they say that they're able to practice in. So an attorney has to be barred in whatever state that they practice in. You can't be barred in Maryland and practice in North Carolina unless you get permission from the court. So there is the opportunity that if you have a Maryland attorney, but your case is in North Carolina, they can petition the North Carolina court to allow them to practice. But for the most part, we make sure that they're properly barred, and we also make sure that they don't have any grievances against them, right? So no current or pending grievances. That is a part of the sort of ethics process with lawyers, that you can have a grievance brought against you. That grievance can take away your bar license. It can put you on suspension, things of that nature. So we make sure that the lawyers in the network don't have those grievances against them.
That is great.
Yeah, that way you can just get to looking and don't have to worry about sort of that type of due diligence.
Right. You're not re-vetting people that you've already vetted, which is nice. I mean, because you don't know if you're opening like the yellow pages and you're like just pointing at someone, is this person reputable? Like, so that probably is, I mean, there are a myriad of benefits, obviously, to Justice Connection, but I feel like having it all kind of whittled down for you and saying these people are legit in these fields and they're quite good and they're Black, like you don't have to go through like 19 steps to go, okay, I found a lawyer. No, they don't do this type of law, and no, they're not Black and everything else. So you're spending so much less time getting to what you want, which is a Black lawyer to get what you need done. Okay, so expanding out in the summer, right? Obviously, this is a small project. Where do you see Justice's connection to sort of Black people's connection to the law, right? Because you had said earlier, we're often seen as, it's just historically sort of this adversarial, like, oh, there's a lawyer on the phone, like, don't pick it up type of thing. Like, how do you see the connection between Black folks and Black lawyers very specifically, like in the future? Is that connection just more like just like white folks in America, like, of course you get legal counsel and this is how we handle things? Is that the goal, or is there a slightly different avenue as you see it?
Yeah, no, that's a powerful question. I think that I want Black people to walk outside of their door and feel that if the sugar honey iced tea hits the fan, they're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Right. We consciously and subconsciously really walk outside our door hoping don't nothing happen today because I don't got it, right? Like I don't know what to do or where to go. And you want your sons to get home without being pulled over by the police and something happening. You want to go to your job in peace and work without somebody discriminating against you or treating you different. And so often our stressors come from this Black experience that is tied to racism, white supremacy, oppression, that we swallow these pills every day, right? It eats at us internally as well. And sometimes we endure because that is the only option we know, right? Or the only option, or the best option we think we have. And I think the more we know and the more access we have, the better likely that we are to avail ourselves of at least learning, connecting, and then potentially pursuing, right, justice and whatever that means for you. Everything isn't about going to court. Sometimes it's literally sending somebody a letter, but you didn't write it yourself. You had somebody else who helped you write it or review it so that you get the outcome you want. Everybody don't want to go to court, and we shouldn't all go to court for everything. Some things are negotiated. Some things are mediated. Some things are, you're a business and can't get somebody to pay you for some. It sure does hit different when an attorney sends a letter than when you send a letter. But we've got to have those resources at our table for us to be able to tap into. And so that's my vision, Jay, right? Is for us to be able to be more empowered and educated in the law. And it's a win-win because the Black lawyers need Black people, right? White folks, let's be honest, white folks are not tripping over themselves to go and hire a Black attorney. Now, of course, Black attorneys serve everyone, right? They have white clients. They have all clients of all different shades. but it is imperative for Black people to support Black attorneys. Just like when Thurgood Marshall came out of law school and was like, all right, I'm a lawyer now, right? Black people were like, we got you.
Right.
We gonna keep you in business. We got some needs. And so it is that same premise of us being able to support one another on both ends so that we can we're better together, right? We are better together. And I believe that Black maternal health stats will shift, racial profiling will shift, right? Discrimination on the job will shift. When people think, oh, I better not do something to Raekwon because he's going to be able to call such and such, or they know that they have such and such who has their back, right? That's real. So much of what happens to Black America, Black people, is because nobody's coming for you. Nobody's coming to save you, right? No one's coming to support you. No one's coming to push and change the law to make sure that never again am I able to go to a corner and sweep up every little Black boy on the corner and ride them around. We know this happens.
Right.
But if I don't believe there's any legal recourse, then what am I scared of? Right. And
that's a perfect example.
All of that
shifts. Perfect. Yeah.
All of that shifts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you say that, because the first thing I thought of is that there's a scene in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like back in the day, where Carlton and Will get arrested and they're in this like little town jail. And the person who comes in is Uncle Phil, who is a judge, right? Obviously a former lawyer. And the cops they don't know what to do because they were not expecting that's who would come to their rescue, right? Like this idea of like, yeah, maybe your dad who doesn't know anything. Oh, it's a lawyer. And then their entire demeanor changes, right? Because like he comes in and he knows what he's talking about. And just having that sort of idea of having Black lawyers at your disposal, maybe not your uncle, but maybe, you're having them at the disposal. I do think that that's a very good point of, maybe cops are like, is it really worth it? But if there is nobody there to kind of push, then, it's like, well, we can just do whatever we want. Who's going to say something, right? So yeah, that's excellent. I think people think about just lawyers and from a perspective of like, I don't want to just be litigious, but there's nothing wrong with bringing a court case or getting a lawyer involved, especially if you're right. You know what I mean? It's not just doing something to just do something, but you're doing something to protect yourself, using a person who knows more than you and then can push harder than you. So yeah, I think that's an excellent goal.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of controversy about the juvenile law. Of course, in Maryland, it says if you arrest a juvenile before you can even interrogate that person, you have to make a call to a lawyer. It wasn't like that. And there's all kinds of pushback against that. But now the cops know, the parents know, and the kids know, and kids are going to be kids. The kids know that you have to call a lawyer first.
Yeah. I mean, it is mind-blowing. I don't know why, because it shouldn't be, that people would be against that parents have to be notified when their children or their child is arrested. Now, good and well, there are folks in Bethesda right now who are like, I wish somebody would not put their hand on my child without coming to me first, right? It is understood that would not happen. So what this law really is doing is, codifying what some people already experience. And for some to say, oh, no, we don't want to do that, really shows how the vulnerable get taken advantage of in our system. And the question is, who profits from that? Who benefits from children being arrested and not having their parent called, right?
Lawyer called, and now they have to call a lawyer.
Well, everybody gets the right to a lawyer. The problem is that, people don't even know that they can say that, right? And sometimes we know we can say that, but to your point too, Jay, we're intimidated. We can, you say and somebody says, tell me this and I'll let you go. And you're like, tell you this, right? Like, I'm just going to say exactly what you just said back.
I can get out of here.
I can get out of here. And that is not how the legal system works. It is not how the legal system works at all. It is about having good representation. That's what it's about.
And about having good information. I want to ask you this last question. We're almost out of time. So for those who are tuning in, I don't know if you're watching this on a replay, if you're in the middle of it, if you've been here from the beginning, thank you for tuning in today's Chicken Box. We have with us Kisha Brown, CEO and founder of Justis Connection. Here's my last question. So Justice, Justice, is the way it's spelled. What's Justis? How did you come up with that name, and what does that mean?
Yeah, so it really was tapping into what I believe justice is very personal, right? And it's also universal, right? There are dual aspects of it. And so justice it's an alternate spelling, if you will, of the traditional justice with the CE. So it's an alternate spelling, and I wanted us to also think about justice in a different way. So just is ... What is just to you? That is really where we all need to start. Is justice look like being able to build my multi-million-dollar business, get you some multi-million-dollar legal advice, right? Do you want to build a multi-million generational wealth of legacy for your children? You need to get a multi-million-dollar estate planning attorney, right? What does justice look like to us personally, especially as Black people, but universally for everyone? And then being able to imagine that and move in the direction that is. So just is.
Excellent. So we normally do a segment talking called sort of Get on the Box, right? Which is allowing people to get on their soapbox and speak their truth. So I'll go to
I feel like
Dr.
I've been on the soapbox the entire time, Jay, but that's okay.
Well, you got a summary you got to get together here.
Okay.
Like a minute summary.
Yeah, a closing argument, ma'am.
There you go. Yeah, in your parlance, right? So I will kick it over to Dr. Draper first to be on the box.
I just want to thank Kisha Brown, Esquire, for joining us. She joined us on the Chicken Box a couple of years ago as she not was founding. She had already founded Justis Connection, but she was finding her way and building it out. And now she's ready to go international. I said that, you said national, but No,
I'm with you.
But in the universe.
She's ready to go international. So I want to thank her for her perseverance, because it takes money and time to build out anything. And this is not something that she's doing and was getting a lot of money to do, but it's something that she was passionate about, because she had a good government job. So back in the day. And so she's stepped out on faith to do this, to help all of us understand. And she cited us a statistic that I don't want us to lose sight of. A couple of statistics. 70% of Black people do not have a will. That is huge. And all of us think that we're going to get around to it and we're going to have time to do it, but not right now, because I'm too young to think about it. And even older people kind of poo-poo sometimes. Oh, I'm going to get to it. My children know what to do. I put the money under the mattress and they can just divvy it up or whatever. And so we have so many vacant properties.
Yes.
Some of them, people think it's just because someone didn't want to take care of it. But what happens a lot of times is that people die, no will, no direction, and no one else in the family can do anything with it because of the way it was titled or not titled. And so we don't take care of our business. So I'm on the box now to say that I want to thank Kisha Brown and her whole network of attorneys, to say to all of us, when we say we can't afford to do something, most of us, not all of us, we spend money on what we want to spend money on. We want to do that Caribbean cruise, and it's the summer of 2026 that we're going to go. We've started saving our $10 a week now so that we can do the things that we want to do. So it's a matter of what our priorities are. And I want to just thank you, Kisha, for reminding us that if we don't take care of those things on a legal the legal things we have to take care of, then, we've done ourselves a disservice. And it's not just a lawyer for when you get in trouble. Right. That's another stereotype about Black people. The only time you don't need a lawyer is if you break the law, but people are breaking the law all the time that disproportionately impact Black people, just like laws are being broken in DC. And it used to be people say, oh, you got a federal job? Oh, you got a good government job. All this, and then just like that, it's gone. So I am off the box. Just want to thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I will get on the box now. Look, Kisha, thank you for coming in. Miss Kisha Brown, Esquire, give you your full title. Look, I think the idea of connecting Black folks with Black lawyers is kind of, it feels, in my opinion, almost understated, right? It's like, oh yeah, Black people to Black lawyers, obviously, that's how that Venn diagram should work. But there is something powerful about connecting with people who also share your same story to some degree, right? So yes, you should have a lawyer if you need, not just when you get in trouble, but for your will and things like that. But there is a very specific difference between, like, there's a cultural difference in talking to somebody like, yes, I need a will, but and I know that here is the precedent that has connected both of us, and sort of the historical precedents, and there is power in that, right? And like you said, it's one thing for Black lawyers to have all clients of all races and creeds. That's totally fine, obviously, but it is Black folks, I don't want to say job, but it does benefit us very specifically to connect and use Black lawyers as well. So I appreciate your business. I think it's really cool. I had never kind of really thought about that until we were doing this interview. So, and your point of having these people there from a legal standpoint, kind of behind you when things may go awry or when you just need help, is a powerful thing to consider. And I don't think, at least I hadn't really considered that until you said it. So I'd have to imagine some people hadn't really thought about that either. So thank you for being on, and thank you for what you do. I look forward to hearing about this web going all across the country and the world eventually this summer. So thank you. So you're on the box now.
Oh my gosh, can I just get both of those for a commercial? Those were amazing. I just
look, my fee, let me tell you what my budget is.
we will follow up on that part.
All right.
But no, I truly do appreciate the opportunity to be here on the Afros Chicken Box. I love the Black press and want to continue to support the Black press is so integral in us being able to tell our own stories and hear our own stories. And it's an honor to be a part of this. And I appreciate both of you for amazing questions and dialogue and being able to share about not just Justice Connection, but the work of us being able to have justice for ourselves, right? And sometimes we experience relief in church, we experience relief even just zoning out in front of the television, and we are looking for opportunities to feel relief. And justice, right, is that relief in our belly that isn't just momentarily, it's not fleeting, it's the thing that can carry us individually and as a people. And we are deserving of justice. We are deserving of someone fighting for us and advocating for us and representing us and pushing for us. We deserve it in everything. And so, I welcome folks to connect with Justice Connection. Signing up for our monthly newsletter is one way to just stay in the loop, or connecting with us on social. We're on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. And also, especially if I can give a shout out to business owners. We just started Path to Profit, Legal Strategies for Successful Business Owners. And it is truly born out of the need of meeting business owners where they are, who cannot hire an attorney or who aren't ready to hire an attorney, and being able to say, you deserve top legal information for your business. And so if you're a business owner and you don't have an attorney, I highly implore you to check out the website, to join and to get the help that you deserve and you need for your company, for your business, for your dream, for the investment that you're making in yourself and your family. So thank you both again for the opportunity to be here. And hopefully I can come back another time and we can talk some more.
You'll have to come back because you'll be international by then. So
that's right.
If our other co-host, Impeccable, were here, he would say at this point also, thank you so much for being with us. And then he would say, what, Jay, call a senior.
Call a senior.
He would say, call them, don't text them, call them. They want to hear your voice. So
Yeah.
call Auntie and them and say, hey, how you doing? And by the way, is your business in order?
Yes. I love that.
I call Auntie and ask her like that. You have to, kind of ask a little differently.
How is everything really going, Auntie? Right? You got your stuff in order, Auntie. So what is that? But I love that, call a senior. I just left my grandmother's 100th birthday party past Saturday, and I make a point to call my grandmas and talk with them. But it's true, people don't talk to them, and we need to know the information they know, the blessings that they have for us, the motivation, the pouring into us. And sometimes they tell you something that you didn't know about, and so I love that.
Let them know you're doing it. Hit record on your phone and then just let them talk.
Yeah.
Same thing you heard 100 times. But thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. Jay Jackson, you're amazing co-host. And so
thank you. You as well.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time. And as we say, don't be a chicken.
Get on the box.
Get on the box.
All right.
And don't be part of the 70%. Sign up for Justis Connection newsletter. Take care.